everybody, it's Dr. Joe and Wonder Callie, and today I'm going to show you my top 10 exercises for scoliosis. So let's get started. Disclaimer alert, disclaimer alert. So scoliosis can be a bunch of different things, and scoliosis can be either postural induced or something that you've had all your life. So sometimes you have a C curve, sometimes you have an S curve, sometimes it goes one way or the other way. So you have to get evaluated by your doctor or physical therapist to know that. I can't tell you what that is since I can't evaluate you. So these exercises are general exercises. They should help for all of that, but a lot of times it's best to know what kind of curve you have. So let's start off with bridging. Bridging is one of my favorite exercises. It's easy to do and it really helps strengthen the pelvis, the core, and the back muscles. So it's a really good exercise and it's pretty easy to do. With bridging, what you want to do is prop your knees up and you want to make sure you control the movement. So you're not just coming up and going down like that with a bridge. You want to really control the movement, kind of go one segment at a time, but you don't have to stop at each segment. And when you come up, really kind of push forward that way. Your knees are kind of going that way versus just kind of popping up like that. So really start kind of one segment at a time, come up, pushing those knees forward, and then nice and slow coming back down. So again, you don't have to stop at each segment, but that's what you want to feel, that one segment's coming up at a time and then same thing going back down. So you're kind of curling that back up and down. So I would just start off with maybe 10 of these, 2 sets of 10, 1 to 2 sets of 10. Again, it really depends on how severe your scoliosis is, how long you've had it. And so since I can't evaluate you, I don't really know those answers. So you'll just have to use your best judgment on that. But start off with a little bit and then slowly progress up from there. So then the next one is just going to be a side crunch. With side crunches, you don't have to come all the way up into a full sit-up, especially if you have some back issues and it's a little uncomfortable to do. Some people like to hold their hand back here just to kind of support their neck. Some people kind of like to come up in here. But all you're going to do is just come up a little bit right here and then just kind of crunch side to side. Some people like to have their arms down and then kind of do a side to side like this. You can even have your hands here and then do a little bit of a rotational crunch side to side. But you don't have to come all the way up, and try not to stress your neck muscles out. I'm coming up just a little bit because I'm talking to you, but normally I try and get myself in a more neutral position and then just come up a little bit. So my shoulders are coming up off of the floor, but not my whole body. And again, if you have problems getting up off the floor, you can do these exercises on your bed or on a couch. You don't have to get down on the floor if you have a hard time getting back up. So then the next one is going to be a bird dog exercise. And so that's just kind of getting onto all fours. With this one, again, if you're not comfortable doing this, like maybe it bothers your knees or your shoulders a little bit, you can hold off on this one. But just kind of getting in this position, what you want to try and do is keep your back as flat as you possibly can. And I know with scoliosis, sometimes that's a little hard depending on what kind of curve you have. But you really want to keep your back in a neutral position. A lot of times when people go into the bird dog, they end up kind of trying to come up and lean, but imagine that there's something on your back and you don't want it to fall off. So I would start off with maybe just doing your arms first. So you're just gonna take one arm and kind of stretch it out and just alternate back and forth. So if this is easy and you can keep your back in that neutral position, then next try your legs. So then you're just gonna kick out. So again, I'm not kicking up like this. See how I'm really twisting that back? You wanna keep it straight and just kind of kick your leg out, keeping those the pelvis in a neutral position. And then if you have that down pretty good, then you're gonna do opposite arm, opposite leg. And so it just kind of looks like a bird dog pointing at the bird. That's why they call it that. So really trying to keep that back as straight as you can, trying to keep those hips as straight as you can. So not, coming up like that makes it easier, but then you're not really doing that exercise very well. So the next ones, I'm going to use a Swiss ball. You can just lie down on your stomach, but I like using the Swiss ball a little bit better. So Swiss ball, the next one for that is going to be T's. So we're going to be exercising the upper back now. So the reason I like the Swiss ball is sometimes it's just a little more comfortable. You can just kind of get in this position. If you want to make it harder, you can bring your knees up off the floor, but you don't have to do that. And then all you're going to do is bring your arms out to the side with your thumbs up, and then just bring them back, squeezing those shoulder blades together. So again, I can lie all the way down on my stomach and do this, but it's a little bit harder in the fact that you don't have as much motion. But what I'm really doing is just trying to squeeze those shoulder blades together while my arms are straight with my thumbs in that upward position. So I would just start off again with maybe 1 to 2 sets of 10 a couple times a day, and then progress from there. So then the next one is a back extension movement. And this is the same thing. You can do it lying down on your stomach, but since I have that curve in my hip over the ball, I feel like I can do a little bit more motion with it. So you might want to start lying all the way down on the floor, but then if you can work your way up to the Swiss ball, or some people call it therapy ball, stability ball, you can do that as well. So this time you're just going to kind of place your hands on the back of your head, and you're just going to kind of go back, bending that back into extension. So again, if you have scoliosis, this might be kind of tough. It might be a little hard. It might be a little bit painful. If you're feeling any sharp pain or anything like that, you want to hold off on this one. But I'm really just kind of getting that bend and going into extension. So really kind of working those back trunk muscles. You can do a little pause if you want to and come back down. You can make it harder by coming up on your knees and then coming back down, and then that adds a balance component to it. So that one's a little bit harder. You might just want to start off with 5, maybe 3 sets of 5, and then just kind of see how that goes from there. So then the next one is going to be a side plank, but we're going to do it modified, because again, depending on how severe your case is, a lot of these exercises might be pretty tough to do. So that's why you really just want to build them up. You want to modify them. If you're still having a hard time, make sure and go see your physical therapist, because then they can modify things even more. So with a side plank modified, you're going to be on your knees. But even though you're on your knees, you still want to get your body in a very straight position as much as you can. If you're bending up like this, then you're not quite getting that exercise right. So I'm just going to start here. Make sure that elbow is kind of in alignment with your shoulder, because if you're too far this way or too far this way, you're going to end up getting a shoulder problem. And then you're just going to, I like to put my hand on my hip. If you need this for balance, you can place it on the floor and kind of come up, but see how I'm still kind of in a straight line. So I like holding it up here just so sometimes I can feel if my hips start collapsing in, and if they do, then you're probably not quite ready for it yet. But you really want to be in a straight line. If I'm sagging down like this, again, I'm probably not quite ready for this yet. So I would start off with maybe just like a 10-second hold. Eventually you want to work your way up to maybe a minute, but that's going to take you several weeks to do. So don't try and force it, because if you end up being in pain or hurting yourself some more, then you're not going to want to do any of the exercises, and then it kind of defeats the point of doing everything. So the next exercise is just going to be a standing side lean with a weight. So this is just a soup can, vegetable can. Usually they're maybe at the most 1 pound, depends on if you get extra chunky soup or not. But you want to start off again with something pretty light and work your way up, because if you start off with like a 10-pound weight, you really might end up hurting yourself a little bit. But all you're going to do is just kind of get yourself in a good stance position, feet about shoulder width apart, and just hold the weight on one side, and you're just going to lean over and then come back up. But the goal is you're not kind of leaning forward like this or twisting. You're really just bending over towards the side and then nice and controlled coming back up. So I would maybe just start off with 5 and then come over to the other side and do 5 on the other side. But really try and get that full side bend, not twisting, not coming over. So if you have that scoliosis and this is all you can do because you're really tight on one side, that's okay. That's fine to do. But just make sure that you're getting that nice controlled movement with those exercises. So again, start off with something really light, then you can kind of progress from there. So then the next one is going to be bear hugs. And so using a resistive band is a really nice way to do the bear hugs. Make sure, again, you're starting off with the lightest resistive band. Different brands have different colors, so make sure you're paying attention to which one is the lightest one, because a lot of times with resistive bands, it might feel really easy, but then later after you've kind of settled down a little bit, then you're hurting. So make sure you're not overdoing it. Again, just starting off with maybe 10, 2 sets of 10 a couple times a day. But with the bear hugs, you're going to put it around behind you. And the goal is just like you're going in to give somebody a bear hug. So if someone was standing in front of me, I would come around and touch and then come back around, because I don't want to smack them when I come back in. Keep it a little bit low. Some people kind of try and arch their shoulders up, but try and keep those shoulders down and come around, nice big hug, and then come back in and get that little squeeze at the end. So nice big rounding it out. Make sure you're not taking the person out when you come back in. So again, just start off with a little bit and then kind of progress your way up from there. So the last couple ones are going to be squat movements. So again, these are a little bit tougher, so make sure that you're ready for them. You might not quite be ready for them. You might have to work up to them a little bit. So the first one is going to be a side squat with a little bit of a reach. So make sure that you're keeping good technique with your squat. Squat should be your feet are flat, you have equal weight shifts, so you're not up on your toes, you're not back on your heels, you're keeping that equal weight shift. You're not taking your knees in front of your toes, because that's putting all the weight on your toes. So really sticking your butt back, hinging at your hips, and keeping your back straight. So when you go to step out, you're stepping into that squat, and as you step, you're going to reach over. But see, I'm keeping my knee kind of where it is. I'm not leaning over past my toes. It's still staying in that range. So I'm coming down, reaching over, coming back up. Squat down, reach over, come back up. If you want to alternate back and forth, squat down, reach over, come back up, you can. But make sure that you're not doing this, because then you're going to end up having your knee hurt you. So make sure you're doing good, controlled movements, proper technique, and if you don't feel like you are, then the exercise is not worth it to end up maybe hurting something else. So the last thing is going to be a squat with a reach to either the opposite knee or the opposite foot, depending on how much flexibility you have and how much balance you have. So all still the same techniques where you're doing that correct spot, squatting to get that correct technique. And when you come down into the squat, I'm just going to rotate over a little bit and touch the outside of my knee. If this is easy and you can do a lot and you can keep that good form and you have no problems, then you can eventually squat down and touch the outside of your toes. But again, if I'm doing this and really leaning over and putting all that weight on that side, then it's not worth it, because you're going to end up hurting something else. So I would just definitely start at the knee and just get that little bit of a rotation with that squat. So those are your top 10 exercises for scoliosis. If you'd like to help support my channel, make sure and click on the link up there. And don't forget to subscribe by clicking where? Down there. And remember, be safe, have fun, and I hope you feel better soon.